Hi, hello everybody. How are you this evening? We want to welcome you to A2I Dyslexia Live Show. Of course, if we don't know where you're joining us from this evening, but no matter where you are, we're in London, or I'm in London, so I'd want to say good evening to everybody. If you're abroad, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you've joined us from. It's such a privilege to have you as our viewers for this evening, that you're joining us for this live show. Today's topic is quite different from what we normally talk about. It is the condition is dyspraxia, which is still part of the dyslexia family, so to speak, or shall I say the umbrella. It comes under the umbrella of neurodiversity. So today's show is about dyspraxia. We have the lovely Tumi, who will be talking about his dyspraxia journey and what it's like to actually have this condition. Now, we talk about dyslexia a lot. Since we started our live show, we covered dyslexia. Everything is about dyslexia. In fact, we named our live show All Things Dyslexia. But I mean, I have dyslexia and I have dyspraxia and I have dyscalculia and I have Erling syndrome. So all these specific sort of learning difficulties, one can just have one, or you could have more than one. And I have 4 conditions in one. And today's show, Dyspraxia, is another condition that I do have as well. So I'd like to welcome the amazing and wonderful Tumi Saturi. Now, Tumi is somebody that some of you may have been familiar with because he actually did a live show on Instagram, and I think it was titled The Black Dyspraxic. I'll leave him to talk a little bit about that when we get round to it. But before we actually ask Tumi to introduce himself, talk about what he does and why he's passionate to share the awareness to do with dyspraxia, I'd like to tell the viewers who I am and why this organization was set up. So I'm Elizabeth Techi. Some of you know who I am already because you come live with us on Monday. You may be new and joining us, and you may not know anything about why we do these shows. Now, I was speaking to me earlier, and I did say the particular show, which is All Things Dyslexia, that we do, we don't get funding for it. It's not funded. I do this purely because I want to give back to community. And yes, so I do it for free. Now, one may say maybe why. I do it because I feel that there's a lot of awareness and a lot of education, particularly in our BME community, that we need to learn about all the specific conditions that one may have. So today's show is about dyspraxia. The title is Dyspraxia and Me. And I'd like to introduce the amazing Tumi Saturi, who would tell you a little bit about himself and why he wants to speak about this condition. Tumi, welcome to A2I Dyslexia Live Show.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Well, hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me again. It's truly an honor.
Wonderful. Now, you're joining us from Newcastle, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I always say to people, the fact that we're all working remotely, to some extent, has been quite beneficial.
Yes.
Because alternatively, you would have to travel from Newcastle to the studio for us to do the show. But guess what? You're in your front room, I'm in my front room, and we're doing this. Isn't that amazing?
It is amazing. I actually just came to Newcastle yesterday, but yeah, I'm in Newcastle currently.
Wonderful. Now tell our viewers why you want to obviously talk about this condition, dyspraxia, and what it's been like for you. Just give a little bit of introduction about you. Yeah.
Okay, so introduction about me. I am currently 28 years old. I work as a research assistant for Newcastle University in evidence synthesis. I'm of Nigerian heritage. I'm a British-born Nigerian. I'm one of 5 children. I was diagnosed with dyspraxia at the age of 4. So I tell people that I was aware of my dyspraxia very early. I knew about dyspraxia before I knew I was black, if that makes sense. So and it's something, dyspraxia hasn't been something I've been able to mask, because it's been very obvious that there was something very different from me. But for a long time, I didn't really want to embrace that, because in our culture where I'm from, the idea of having a disability or the idea of being inferior is not something you want to really do, especially as a guy. You don't really want to do that. But over the years, I have learned to embrace it. Dyspraxia has been a journey. There's been several challenges, from reading, struggling to read and write, from struggling to like play football or to have friends or to organize my time effectively. But by the grace of God, I've managed to overcome these obstacles through GCSEs, A levels, e- undergrad, and even postgrad, and I'm here today. So
That put a smile on my face. Yeah.
yeah,
Thank you very much for that little bit of introduction there to me. Now, let me read a little bit about you because I know sometimes it's
yeah,
difficult for us to talk about ourselves.
yeah,
So I will read a little bit of your biography. So Tumi Satori is currently building on his health economics background. He's
yes.
currently developing himself as a, I can't say the word. What is it? METH. You tell me. Help me out. Method.
Methodologist.
That's the word. Bit of a mouthful for me, but I didn't really. I kept practicing. I thought, look, leave it, Lizzie. Get to me to say this bit for you. Right. So, viewers, you got that, didn't you? Yeah. You can repeat that for me again to me. Um,
Methodologist.
that's the word. Now, when I was doing my dyslexia dissertation, that was a word that I did come across quite often. But hey,
Yeah.
here we are. He's involved in a number of systematic reviews whilst working as a research assistant in the evidence. And what is that word? SYN.
Evidence synthesis.
What is that?
So synthesis means to bring things together. So what
Okay.
I do as a profession is I bring medical evidence together to answer a specific question.
Right. When I was a dyslexic, that was a bit of a mouthful for me, but I'm
Yeah.
glad you can say it. So that's
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, so he works with the University of Newcastle. He's a neurodiversity advocate, particularly raising awareness in the intersexuality between sexuality rather between race and neurodiversity. He was diagnosed with dyspraxia at the age of 4. All these big, fat, long words for dyslexics to pronounce. I
I don't
mean,
know. It's like someone's trying to take the mic. Like I don't
so,
know why they do that. You know,
you know,
you would have thought that they would have kept it simple, but they really didn't.
exactly. Someone said to me once, all these neurodiversity words, and I still live in this sort of moment of dyslexia,
Yeah.
dyspraxia. I tend to kind of break them all up. I just find it such a mouthful, but hey, I'm sure I'm probably not the only one. Yeah. So he's also interested in exploring how to effectively leverage the resources and capacity of African diaspora to further improve the health outcomes and health systems on the continent.
Yeah.
Now, that's a little bit of Tumi's biography. So, Tumi, now, dyspraxia is something that I know that is really close to your heart.
Yeah.
Now, just tell me, what is dyspraxia in a nutshell for the interest of our viewers,
So
particularly from the BME community?
so the structure in a nutshell is basically difficulties with movement and coordination. Dyspraxia used to be called clumsy child syndrome. Other people know dyspraxia as developmental coordination disorder. So you think movement. You People who have dyspraxia would have difficulties with gross and fine motor skills. So when we talk about gross motor skills, we're talking about swimming. We're talking about just walking, maybe dancing to a rhythm. When we're talking about fine motor skills, we're talking about using cutlery. If I was a woman, applying makeup, doing DIY, screwdriving. Another example of gross motor skills is driving, because that requires a lot of hand-eye coordination, those sort of things. But also dyspraxia, people who are dyspraxic struggle with processing and sequencing things, and there's
Right.
different types of dyspraxia. Like some people have verbal dyspraxia, for example, and they struggle with words and
Well, maybe that's why I'm struggling with all these words
yeah.
sometimes. Yeah, yeah.
But that's
So
not some
is that why maybe I can't ride a bike, and is that why I get my left and right muddled up?
yeah. Now they
Mm.
like all these things about struggling to ride a bike, struggling to swim, understanding left and right, all of these things, they're symptoms of dyspraxia. Riding a bike was a big challenge for me, thankfully. It was something I was able to overcome. Like for me, one of the things about dyspraxia and something that's really push, I'm very competitive. So I don't like if everybody around me is doing something, I can't accept, oh, I can't do it from because I'm dyspraxic, therefore I'm not gonna try. No. especially when I was younger, I would have to try and try and try and try and try again and show you that in spite of dyspraxia, I'm still gonna ride a bike. So that was my kind of attitude growing up, very determined
Mm.
to do that.
So, what was it like for you then, as a young boy growing up, and for example, kicking a football? I mean, how was it for you to realize that actually all my friends are doing it and I'm not able to do that? How
So
did it make you feel confidence
it's
wise?
a big deal because from an African background, especially West African, sport is massive. As a, you play football, play basketball, all these things, but I just wasn't the best at those type of things. But thankfully, my dad understood that you know sport is two things. It's physical, but it's also intellectual. So when I was younger, I was more interested in. I was better at talking about tactics and formation and what people should do. So when I was like, even as an 12, 13, I got involved in coaching, for example. Funny enough, when I used to play football, I was someone that was able to, because I understood about the game, I knew about running into space, finding space, knowing who to mark, who not to mark. So sometimes it'd be really funny. I'll run into space, and because my movement was good, people will pass me the ball and be like, "Oh, surely you should score," and then I don't. And then you get your abuse, you get the bullying. But it wasn't just football, it was not being that great in video games, not being that good, and competition as a young guy,
Mm,
especially as a
mm,
teenager, it's everything. You
mm,
want to have
mm.
bragging rights, you want to be that top dog. So yeah, these are the type of things that I had struggles with as a dyslexic.
Right, right. So I hope that our viewers, like, if anybody's got a question or think that, oh, actually, maybe this is what it's like for me, or it's like for my child, there is help out there. Now, Tumi will tell you there's masses of help out there.
Yeah.
And the reason why it's really important to go for that help is that, for example, if you're a young lad, you wouldn't get the bullies and all that goes with it. I'll be honest, when I was at school, nobody wanted to pick me for the netball team because like, Elizabeth is going to make us lose. And that's because catching that ball was a huge issue for
And
me.
nobody wants to lose. And sometimes they'll say, "Oh, can you go and go?" Or they'll pick you, but they wouldn't want to pass it to you because
Mm,
nobody wants to lose at that age.
mm,
Like,
mm, mm.
and as a young people, dyspraxia, what's it to them? If you're not gonna make us lose, you're not important at that time. So
Wow. So, to our viewers, so anyone who's joined us just now, we're talking about dyspraxia. We have the lovely
yeah,
Tumi, who's doing lots of Instagram live to bring awareness with this
yeah,
condition. We're glad that you can join us this evening. If you have any questions at all, please do drop it for us. And Tumi and myself will be able to answer that for you as much as we can. Just to let you know that we are not professionals as in diagnosis for dyspraxia. I live the condition and Tumi lives the condition. So if ever anybody wants to find out any more or how they go for diagnosis, there are professionals that will do that for you.
yeah,
Just thought I'd drop that comment in there. There is an amazing lady called Amanda Kirby who's done lots and lots of research on dyspraxia and other specific learning difficulties. Of course, you can link up with her on LinkedIn if you want to find out any more details about this particular condition. So, Jimmy, thank you for that. The way you answered the first question was really, really amazing, and it's great for people to hear that. I'm just going to move on to the next question now. Now, you come from a Nigerian parentage.
yeah.
What tribe are you from?
I'm a proud Yoruba man.
Sorry, Yoruba. Okay. So, what was it like for your parents when they found out that their son, and I know son is a very big thing in the Nigerian community,
Yeah.
have got one particular condition called dyspraxia? They'd never had they heard of the word before? Did they not know what it was? How was it
So
for them? How was their
so
reaction?
so it's quite
What
hard
do
for
you?
me to because obviously I was 4 at the time.
Yeah,
I could just imagine, like, it was. So it's quite hard for me to say this is how they were feeling at this
yeah.
time. But what I could sense is, for a long time, um, actually facing it head on was quite difficult.
Mm,
Not only are my parents Nigerian, but they're also Christian. So
mm,
sometimes that's thing like, oh, you got this fracture, you're healed in Jesus' name. God has got you. We don't really have to deal with it. That type
mm,
of complexities and stuff. But there were challenges, but for years we didn't really face up to it. properly.
Mm.
If of all honesty with you, I think one of the things that they did, which I'm really thankful to my to my dad and my mom, they actually did the research.
Mhm.
they I can't find the book now, but
Mm.
when I was back home, there was a book on the bookshelf written by Dr. Amanda Kirby called The Hidden Handicap. That was
Right.
And they bought it in the 90s, and they were studying this, and they did the research. They found out as much as they could about it and gave me the support. One of the advice that they got was the doctors realized that I actually had above average intelligence, which was always nice to know. And so what because of that, but he would need a sympathetic school. So my
Mm.
parents were like, you know what, we're not going to send him to like a mainstream school with like
Mm.
30 people. We're going to send him to a school with small classes. So
Mm.
because they were Christian, they sent me to Christian schools. These Christian schools had maybe like 10 to 15 people, small classes where I can get the support. So we're still a mainstream school, but I still got the support that I needed. On top of that, they also gave me, we went to something called the Door Program, and this was a private, again, a private service that was offered in London at the time, and we had to do a range of exercises twice a day in the morning and night. The balance on a wobble board, catching and throwing a beanbag, all these things to improve my cerebellum. The cerebellum is a part of your brain that is associated with coordination and stuff. And and I did these exercises for 2 years, from the ages of 14 to 16. Now that service I can't even find at the moment, but I just see my dad now, just saying, and my dad was talking about my exercises at nursery as well. There's
Oh,
just been
bless
a
them.
range of exercises and therapy that my parents were able to recommend for me, which was great.
Oh, that's
But
awesome. Mm.
it was just a journey. It was just a
Mm.
journey. I think their mindset was, you know what, you have dyspraxia, but because we serve the God that we serve, nothing is
Mm.
impossible, and
Mm.
we're gonna keep on going. And I had that attitude very early on in life as well. So we
And
just
that's
kept on going.
and of course, and that's really important because as a parent, if you understand and do your research and know that yes, this
Yeah,
is the condition my child has, this is the help I need, and I'm going to go for
yeah,
it.
yeah,
There are
uh,
parents I've met in the past who probably are in denial, and that's when it
yeah,
becomes a problem.
yeah.
Because
I
once
think
you
it
own
was.
it,
Yeah, I
what,
think what also
mm,
helped was my mum as well. She was
mm,
a health professional, so my mum's a pharmacist.
mm,
So, and my dad was interested in the research. So we had that medical understanding that once we got and we have quite a lot of health professionals within the family and stuff. So
mm,
once we got the name, we bought the books. Having that link with, when I was 16 and I went through some difficulty, we were like, okay, cool, let's get a proper diagnosis, like a proper diagnosis, like to reassess what's going on since the age of 4. We went straight to South Wales. To who did we go to find? Professor Amanda Kirby again. To like, we
wow.
wanted, and we got the full on, service to pay for that diagnosis and everything, because, and I'm looking back, I'm really, really thankful because my mom and dad, they did the research. They did the research when Google wasn't available like that,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
they did what they had to do. And I think it goes to show that as parents, especially if your child is struggling with these things, the responsibility is on you to find that information and to get the clinical advice and the diagnosis that you need to support your child.
Of course, because you've completed your degree, you did your
Yeah,
schools very well, you completed your degree, you're doing your master's now, when you or have you finished your master's?
I finished my masters in 2018.
Right, and now you're doing your PhD, or you'd like to.
I would like to do my
Yeah.
PhD. Yeah,
And this just goes to show that the help is out there and you can tap into it. If you're if
yeah,
you if you really want it, you can go for that help and get it. And
yeah,
that's the message that I want to get across, really. Because I know that I'm from a Ghanaian parentage background, and I know that if I would have ever said to my parents after, I don't know, whatever age it was, that I have this condition called dyspraxia, dyslexia, it would be like, what is that? And don't
yeah.
tell anybody.
Yeah.
Because it's shameful or whatever it might be. Um,
Yeah.
but for me, for example, I talk about my dyslexia and I let my family know that it is real. It's a condition that is there, and I am struggling, and I've gone for the help, and I'm using the help I need.
Yeah.
So hopefully that sort of shame or whatever it might be is gone out the window. And if it hasn't, I don't think it's my problem anymore. Do you
Yeah.
see what I mean? Because I've moved
Yeah.
on from
Yeah.
there.
And sometimes it's it's interesting because sometimes parents can be very supportive,
Mm,
but also sometimes parents want to be very protective as well.
mm,
And
mm,
sometimes say, so my mom especially used to say, you can't do this, or maybe you shouldn't do this, or because you'll find it difficult because you're dyspraxic. And a lot of the times when she says that, she's saying that as a mom, someone to protect her child, someone that she doesn't want her child to be hurt. But when she says that, I'm like, okay, cool. I'm gonna have to show you. So, for example, practical example, I wanted to do 13 GCSEs. She was like, no, you shouldn't do 13 GCSEs. You have special needs. Like, let's do 10 or 11. I was like, all my friends are doing 13. Why can't I do 13? For me, it didn't register that, and I went and I ignored my mom, which I'm not advising young kids to do, and I did it anyway. For example, or the one about when I was 16, I was thinking about applying to medicine. My mom
mm.
was like, as a dyspraxic, studying, cramming all these exams, even as a medical doctor, the dexterity of doing operations and everything like that. That's difficult because it requires coordination. Are you sure this is something you could do? I was like, Mom, okay. I took her advice. I went on to do it. I went on to get the offer for medicine. I didn't make it into medical school because of the grades, which is another story for another day.
Yeah,
But the point is, it's kind of like now my mom's like, now our relationship is, I'm not even going to tell you can't do it, because if I tell you can't do it, you want to prove me wrong. But I think that kind of reinforced the journey of me always trying to prove things wrong, caused me to be more resilient and determined. I'm just passionate to achieve, basically.
wonderful. And I think whilst you were talking, I think your dad came on live, didn't
Yeah,
he? And he
yeah, he
left a
did.
message. Yeah. And Marcia, the great Marcia, who said your story is really
Hi,
inspiring.
Marcia.
Yeah, inspiring to hear. And I think you're doing amazing work. And I'm praying and hoping that the awareness that you've got going, carry on doing it, because we need black male particularly to
Yeah,
spread the news, and just
yeah,
to say that it's actually okay. It's
yeah,
okay, no matter what the condition might be. Go for the help, get it, and
yeah,
excel.
yeah,
Because I don't know if dyspraxia is the same as it probably is, because my middle daughter's got dyspraxia.
yeah,
So I'm thinking it's got to be genetic. You see what I
yeah.
mean?
It is genetic because
Mm,
my dad, for example, has dyspraxia and dyslexia. So it
mm,
is genetic,
mm,
So
mm, mm.
it runs in families. We understand this, but the stigma,
Yeah.
when we think about things like, especially reaction from parents, Nigerian parents, if one of the fears now is, I'm pushing to 30 now.
Mm,
If we talk about neurodiversity too much, what would a family of my potential spouse, how would they view that?
mm,
What would their views of, oh, we don't want that to be in our family, we don't want that to be in our future grandchildren?
mm.
But it's life. And
But the
sometimes
reality, yeah,
it's
the
the
reality,
reality.
of course. Sorry to cut you there. To me, the reality is, because it is genetic,
Yeah,
future wife or no future wife, you've got this condition is here to stay. So, in other
exactly.
words, whoever comes into your life has to understand that, look, love me for who I am, and
Yeah,
and not the condition that I have,
exactly. And
basically.
and it's a
Yeah.
message where, but this is why I understand why people that have certain conditions don't like to disclose it to a lot of people, because
Mm,
in the BME, Afro Caribbean, there's stigma with all sorts. There's still a lot of stigma with mental health. There's still
mm,
stigma with all ranges of disabilities and stuff, and in all aspects of society. So what I'm trying to do is go against that and be like, okay, in spite of that stigma, this is
mm.
who I am. Like it or lump it, but I can't change myself.
Oh, bless you, bless you to me. Now we just got Ruth joining us. The more awareness, the better. Keep going to me. we need more representation, and
Oh,
that's
thanks,
really
Ruth.
important.
Thanks, Ruth. It
It's
means a
very,
lot.
very important to have that representation. I'd love to have a billboard with, your photo on there saying, "Look, dyspraxia, and this is me." It doesn't change anything
Yeah,
about you. I think the more you raise the awareness and the more you talk about it, the more it is acceptance for other people of color, for
yeah,
example.
definitely.
Because the thing is, to me, if you don't know about it or if you hide it, and then you give birth to a child who's got this condition, and then everything starts coming out, then, don't it? So
Yeah.
why not share the news, what it is now, and then deal with that situation when it comes?
But this
Um,
is why it's important to raise awareness, because when
Absolutely.
you raise awareness and people get an understanding, you realize dyspraxia is a yes, it is a disability. Yes, it can be seen as a handicap or a limitation, but it's also can be seen as a superpower. There's
Mm,
also great strengths that dyspraxics, dyslexics, autists, people who are autistic, ADHD, they have as well. And we need the balance, and this is why it's important to raise the awareness appropriately. And because when you raise awareness, you're like, look, there's incredible entrepreneurs that are
mm,
dyslexic,
mm,
dyspraxic,
mm,
and the thing is, that's what you see, and you realize that actually it's actually quite strange that there's stigma, because there shouldn't be stigma
mm.
attached to it, because it actually could be your greatest weakness can also be your greatest strength.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you something, to me. Ever since I came out in the world and said, "Look, I have this condition and I need help,"
Mm,
I can honestly put my hand on my heart and say my career has been phenomenal.
yeah,
And the reason why that is because I've gone into something that I want to make a change,
yeah,
or I want to bring awareness, and it's passion of mine to
yeah,
help as many dyslexic, dyspraxics, dyscalculic, all these different conditions,
yeah,
neurodiversity, as
yeah,
many people as possible. And I really don't see. I can proudly say I'm not ashamed. You're not ashamed. So there's two of us doing this work, and
yeah,
I'm sure there's many, many more people in the future that can come
yeah.
forward and also talk about this particular condition,
And the
because it's
work
not.
that you're doing is amazing, Elizabeth. You're
Oh,
doing
thank
such a
you.
great job.
Thank you so much, to me. Thank you. And so are you. So are you, honestly. So that just moves me on to the next question now. Now, I was going to ask you about perception of dyspraxia,
Yeah,
but you've already covered it, actually, because you
yeah,
said within the Nigerian community, people may look at you differently and so forth. Now, I know that dyspraxia has a spectrum. So it could
yeah,
be severe,
yeah,
mild, or very mild. Very mild. Would
yeah.
you say that with your condition is quite severe?
Very severe. And the reason why I say that it's very severe is that's why I had the diagnosis at such an early age. It was obvious that there was something wrong with me from the very beginning. Yeah,
Right.
that's how
How
severe it was.
So how old was you when you first took your first step? Because I know it's got something to do with
So I
coordination.
was, I think I was around maybe 18 to 20 months.
Okay, right. Is that when maybe your parents thought, actually, that's a bit late?
Yeah, like when I
Mm.
was young, some of my aunties and people in my local church told my mom that they thought I had Down syndrome.
Right. It's
You
quite the
know, when I, yeah, quite the
opposite.
opposite. But what I'm
Mm,
saying is that it was obvious that there was something wrong.
mm,
You
mm,
know, the doctors when I was born was like you couldn't. They thought they couldn't find my retina. They thought I wouldn't be able to walk, talk, or see. All
mm,
these things at an early age, so it was very clear that there was an issue.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's all right. You can carry on. I'll get that up in a minute. Yeah, the question.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
sorry, I got distracted. But yeah, so that's how severe it's been, and
Mm,
I think because of that, I couldn't mask it, and
mm.
this is why I've had to have so much support and so much help. Again, really thankful for parents because
Right.
um,
I think your dad said he runs awkwardly.
yeah,
Okay. I think
because
so do I, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
because there were so many things that you could that if you looked at how I did things compared to other people, it was clear
Mm,
that I was different, and that's why
mm.
I needed so much help and so much support, both by the NHS and privately, to make me the man that I am today. So I'm really thankful for supportive parents.
I think you've got such an amazing parent. I mean, to have your dad watching the show live and
Yeah,
talk about, you said, look, I run awkwardly. Now, I'll tell you something I do. I don't, I probably run awkwardly, but I know that as a dyspraxic, I had to sit my driving test 5 times. I kept going and failing.
Let's not even talk about
We'll
that.
talk about that another day. Yeah.
Like that driving is still a hurdle that I
Mm,
haven't passed yet. I haven't
mm,
done a test yet, and I want to do that soon.
mm, mm,
But
mm.
yeah, it's a challenge, but we're gonna get there.
We'll get there eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
We just had an amazing message that come up actually, and maybe our manager in the studio could put this up. Thank you for Louise Saunders. Thank you for letting me listen. I researched dyspraxic employees for my MSc, and I'm also dyspraxic. I want to be able to support our BME neurodivergent. Oh, I can't say that. Divert. What's that?
Neurodivergent colleague
That's the
in the NHS.
that is the word. Honestly, I don't know what it is. One of my colleagues said, "I think you have to stop using dyslexia and all the different ones and use this neuro." And I said, "I find it difficult. It's a
Yeah.
word that it's a bit of a mouthful for me." Colleagues in the NHS and hearing from your experience is hugely helpful. Well, Louise, I'm sure you can connect with Tumi if you are still
I would
doing
love
your
to do
MSc, or
that.
maybe not. Yeah,
Yeah.
connect together, see what you could do to help each other. And
Yeah.
we do need definitely more awareness in our community. Now,
More awareness and more research as well,
and
because
more research,
talking
absolutely.
about it is one thing, but we need the evidence, we need the understanding, and I think that's what, like, it's something where it's early days, but it's something where I'm beginning to see that that's what I want to devote my life to. So
Excellent. And to me, you know what, you're going to go really far doing it, because there isn't enough representation as in a
yeah,
black person going out there and giving a talk or researching about this particular condition. And this is why I'm passionate to do what I do,
yeah,
because I want to know dyslexia, I want to know dyspraxia, and I mean, you've only got dyspraxia. I've got like 4 conditions going on here.
yeah,
So it was one overlapping the other. So you can
yeah,
imagine what a
yeah.
chaotic world I must live in. But of course, Leslie dropped her message, and she's not ashamed of her condition. Leslie tends to watch the show every week. She also put
Amazing.
another message up. So maybe if Alex can put that up for us. If not, yeah, she says, same here. It took me 5 times to pass my driving test. Yes.
Did you use automatic or manual?
Well,
Because I've been
she's.
learning in automatic actually, because
Oh
that's
my.
easier because
Hmm.
of less coordination.
Yeah. So Louise has come back and said, I will absolutely connect with Tumi. Now, when we finish the live show, we will share Tumi's social media links. And like I
Mm,
said, we want every dyslexic, every dyspraxic, with your condition, we want you to excel. I was going to use
mm,
another word, but I chose another word instead. We want you to excel in what you do. For that
yeah,
reason, this is why this platform's here. So to
yeah,
me, we will connect with as many people. The more the merrier. Really is what
amazing.
we're looking for. Yeah. Ruth said it took me a few times to pass my driving test. My coordination as a dyspraxic took lots of self
Compassion.
compassion. Yeah. You see, I had to stop and
Yeah,
breathe for a minute. But someone said something to me the other day. They said, you know what, Liz, you're so real, because the
yeah,
condition is what it is.
yep,
I do get it all, my daughter, but hey, it
yeah.
is what it is, and I can't really change that. My driving, I was 38 years young. Yeah, when she passed.
And you passed in the manual.
And she
See,
used the manual.
at
Yeah.
first I was like, yeah, I'm gonna drive a manual. I'm gonna drive a manual. But I think again with parents, with family, they were like, look, with driving, you don't need to. It's not about proving a point. It's about
Mm,
finding something that you can use to move about.
mm,
So, because I know sometimes, especially as a man, I have this thing called an ego that
yeah.
something that I want to prove it and be like, no, even though I'm dyspraxic, I can still drive a manual. But also, if you think about a car, it's life and death, it's health and safety. Sometimes you have to think about the most pragmatic decision, and I was like, okay, cool, I'm gonna just learn in an automatic. Who cares
Yeah.
if I can't move a manual? So that's
Well,
why I learned in
I'll tell
automatic.
you something to me when it comes to driving now, and I'll move on slowly from driving in a minute, because that's another day. I might even
Yeah,
get you back on the show to talk about that, because I'm
yeah,
sure there's loads of people that might have issues with that. Now, reversing for me and parking, it takes me forever to do that.
really.
I've been driving since the age of about 17 when I passed,
Okay,
and I'm really I struggle with that. I struggle with the arrow saying turn left, turn right. I'm constantly saying, where am I going? Where am I going? And
mm,
it becomes a bit chaotic. For that reason, I don't do motorway driving,
okay.
because of my dyspraxia condition. Because I'm like, if I take the wrong turn, I'm doomed. So I don't do it for
You
that
don't drive.
reason. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, maybe it's not because of my dyspraxia. It could be fear as well, but I'd rather not,
Yep.
because it can be fatal if that's the case. So I'm just want to move on quickly. Tell me a little bit about your bullying at school. Why did people bully you, and what was the need of that?
Bullying is an interesting thing. I think bullying is something that children do to people that are different to them. And bullying is what people do to appear more popular. People do, especially if you're an easy target. Because one thing you need to understand with dyspraxia, I struggle to think off my feet sometimes. So if you crack a joke with me, I'm not gonna fire back. And sometimes I don't really see jokes. I take things to heart. I still do. So now, I've always been quite an emotional person. So when I was younger, they used to call me things like spastic and retard, and disabled, and it actually used to cause me to cry. I used to cry in front of them because I just didn't know. I used to lash out. It used to make me very angry, but also it affects my self confidence a lot because I didn't really share it with my parents. And it wasn't until my sister, who was 4 years younger than me, came to my school at year 7. She started defending me, a guy who was in year 11, and being like, "Hey, why are you talking to my brother like that?" Some of my other friends in my years also started speaking out and stuff, but I didn't even know how to speak. I didn't have the confidence or the words. I just took it, and I didn't tell anyone about it, and it affected me a lot. It affected my psyche, affected my mind.
I can imagine.
Really,
I can
yeah,
imagine, and this is why, to me, we need you to bring in the awareness in
yeah,
the Black community, and in most communities, to be honest with
yeah,
you. And the reason why we need that is because you're talking from the heart. You've lived this condition. You
yeah,
know what it's like. I mean, I get people look at me and think, "You don't look dyslexic. You look all
yeah.
right," and I'm like, "You don't know what's going on inside this head. You
But
don't know
what
what
does
I
it
have to deal
even
with
mean
every
to
day."
what does it even mean to look dyslexic?
Exactly. Exactly.
Someone told me I would always be a failure. And I was like, I reject it. He goes, you can't reject it. I said it.
Mm,
And that affected my mind so much because I grew up in a era where it was predominantly white. So the black kids were already made fun of on those type of things. But because I had the dyspraxia as well, like I remember people. I started used to call myself out the class spastic. I used to identify as a spastic and retard as well, and it was like, those things you can't even begin to imagine the effect it has on someone's psyche, the effect it has on
absolutely.
someone's mind. I remember overhearing someone saying to my friend, one of my best friend at the time, a really close friend of mine, and she was just like, why are you still talking? Why are you talking to him? He's disabled,
Oh Lord.
you know.
Yeah. To
And
me, you're
what do you
amazing.
what do you do with that at 16? How
Mm,
do you
mm,
how do you even begin to fathom that? And
mm.
so this is why it's just interesting because, but this is why I'm beginning to become more passionate. And this last year, there's opportunities of even to just talk about it because I'm
Yeah.
like, there's more people like me. Do you understand what I'm
Mm.
saying? Like I
Absolutely.
have to help because one thing I've realized is bullying is so common in the neurodivergent community. Whether you have autism, ADHD, dyslexia, dyspraxia, there's bullying. And bullying is uncalled for. No child should go through it. And
I
the thing is, if you
agree.
don't call it out, adults still get bullied. But
Absolutely.
the thing is,
Absolutely.
but now I don't take it. I'm like, you're not gonna call me that. I used to, but I understand there's a difference between bullying and banter, but it's a very distinct difference. Do you understand what I'm saying? So yeah, we,
Oh, Tumi, do you know what? I'm getting a bit emotional, but hey, listen, let me pull myself together, and we've got to do this show because
yeah,
I'm sure there is loads of people watching, and please do get in touch. Do email us. We will forward the questions to me if needs be. Leslie said it takes a lot to move forward. It's hard Thank you so much for sharing your story. Amazing. You are helping so many people. To me, you don't know the amazing work you're doing. I hope there is a filmmaker out there watching this right now. I hope that there is some kind of millionaire who can help us to do a documentary on this particular condition and all the other conditions that there is out there that we don't talk about. Janet Morgan, who just dropped a beautiful message there. You were right to reject the negative labels. To me, no one else can define you. What you are doing is so powerful.
Thank you
Honestly,
so
to me,
much.
I'll take my hat off to you. I've got goose pimples all over me as I'm talking to you, because even though, like I said to you earlier, I do have dyspraxia, but I don't think mine is probably as severe as your
Yeah,
condition.
yeah,
And speaking to you now and listening, I'm just sitting there thinking, who else is going through this? There
yeah.
is also bullying in the workplace, like Marcia said. And of course, if you're black and you've got any specific condition as well, that's on top of all the other layers of things that
Yeah.
you have to deal with. So, and being a male, it must be
And
so difficult for
and
you.
sometimes it's very hard to talk to call these things out because when you're neurodivergent, sometimes you see things as grey and white,
Mm,
so black and grey. So the
mm,
subtle ones, so the facial expressions and the subtle remarks, sometimes you miss it. And so
mm,
sometimes you're being bullied and you're being insulted and you're not even aware of it because of your dyspraxia, you kind of or your neurodivergence, you don't even understand that spatial cue. So you're like, oh, you just, for me, one of the things that's got me to this is I always see the good in people. So even
mm.
my bullies, people that used to bully me, I still wanted to be friends with them. I still wanted to forgive them. My family couldn't understand. They were like, why would you forgive them? Why would you do that? And I was like, because for me, I believe forgiveness is so important because if I don't forgive, that's how you go better, you know?
Absolutely, absolutely. And you're so young as well, 28 years of age.
Yeah.
You're out there talking about this. You said, look, you're looking for a future wife maybe in a couple of years.
Yeah, I don't know why. I
Who
don't
knows?
even know why I opened my mouth to talk about that. But no, but
But
I'm just being real. Like
I
those are the
understand.
things that
Mm,
this
mm,
as a dyspraxic
mm,
28-year-old, I do think about my neurodiversity and
mm,
dating and
mm,
romance and what that looks like. And there's
mm.
actually so much literature, like blogs and stuff about the difficulties about that. Do you disclose it to the person that you're dating? What does flirting look like as someone who is autistic or dyspraxic? Because you don't really understand social cues. So the same ways that you don't really understand social skills as a bully, you can't really tell if someone is mean to you or not. It's difficult to tell if someone is genuinely romantically interested in you
Or
or
not.
it's
Yeah.
just because it's the social cues and the body languages and stuff that you've got to read that as someone who is neurodivergent, you don't really see it.
Yeah, and I understand that completely. I mean, I'll be honest with you, when I first met my partner, I remember saying to him, I've got something to tell you. He said, what is it? And it took me a couple of hours. And I said, I have a condition called dyslexia and
Yeah.
dyspraxia and dyscalculia and all the dys's. And
And
he
you
said,
listen to all the things.
yeah. And he was like, and so what?
Yeah.
And he said, so what? That doesn't define who you are.
Yeah.
But I'm
Yeah.
glad I was able to share that, because in my everyday way of working, or my
Mm,
everyday way of having a relationship, he probably wouldn't have understood why I do the
yeah.
things I do.
Yeah.
But listen, I was open about that, and it's not been an issue at
Yeah.
all, to be
Yeah.
honest. So going back to what you're saying, that right person would understand. And by the way, now that you're live on air, millions of people are watching this, and hey, obviously they'll
Stop.
hear. They'll, they will hear about your story, and don't worry about that. Just do what your calling is, and follow what your calling is, and spread your awareness, and do what you have to do. And
Yeah.
I'm sure that great things will come out of this. And I know
Thank
one
you.
day, to me, you might write a book about this. I know, like I said, if there is any filmmaker out there, Steve McQueen, whatever his name is, if there is a filmmaker out there, please,
Uh,
we definitely need something
Elizabeth, all
done.
these things, you're like a reading man. They're in the pipeline, but yeah, we'll talk
Yes,
offline at this. We'll talk offline about this.
at some point, yeah. Right, lovely. So I know that the show's normally for 45 minutes, and we've got like literally about 2.5 minutes left to go. I just want to ask you one question. Now, what does the future hold for any dyspraxic person watching this program, whether it's a child or an adult?
The future is very optimistic because the present is more inclusive now than ever before. more people are talking about. I'm not the only person to. We're not the only two people talking about
Mm.
neurodivergence. More people are becoming to understand, and I think because of that, the future is great. But there's still a lot of
Wonderful.
work to be done.
Of course.
Because understanding is one thing, but acceptance is another thing.
That's right.
We still live in a society that still values young people by their GCSEs and A levels, and they're assessed in a certain way. If you look at the scandals that are happening this week, you understand that. But if you really, really want to understand neurodiversity and embrace that, you will have to think about other ways to assess people's brilliance and
Mm.
not just limit it to the way we do education. That's a bigger
Absolutely.
conversation. So we're definitely not there yet. And that's just an example of one of the areas that we need to work on.
Fantastic, wonderful. Now, there is an organization called the Dyspraxia Foundation, isn't there?
Yeah.
And they do amazing work for dyspraxic community.
Yes.
Is that
I
right?
could.
Yeah.
Yes. So I've been involved in the Dyspraxic Foundation for a while. I probably haven't been as involved as I would have liked to,
Mm.
but they've been running for like 30 years, I believe. Um, and they've got so much good information on their website, so many great resources. I'm actually part of Dyspraxic Youth, so they've got a 13 to 25 group. I was on there before I was 25, and then they've just released Dyspraxic Adults,
Adults.
young adults as well. But on top of that, there's a being dyspraxic in a non-dyspraxic world, which is another Facebook group. There's Dyspraxia and Life. There's so many like good social media Facebook groups if you want to find out more about dyspraxia itself.
Wonderful. Now, what
Yeah.
we will do, we will obviously get all that information together, and when we post this live show on all our different platforms, we'll obviously add all those social media handles.
Yeah.
Now, to me, we have got literally like a minute left to go. There was a message that came up before what it says closing in 5 minutes. There was a message before obviously without before I actually came to an end of saying thank you for coming onto the show and so forth. There is now, Leslie, I've started a show, least start a conversation, and less maybe you should say start a conversation, and I would be honored if you would appear on my show sharing your story to help and encourage other people. So powerful, passionate, and so powerful, passionate and powerful, she's put there. Now connect with Leslie, of course.
Yes, definitely.
When we finish the show, we
Thank
can
you.
actually, we'll be answering a lot of questions as well on the show. Do definitely connect with Leslie, and the more the merrier. The more you share your story, the more people get help, the more we can have a better world. Particularly
Yes.
being a black man with this condition, and you've done so well for yourself.
Thank you.
You've been very, very successful in what you're doing,
Thank
and
you.
also we want to get this message to the young people that no matter what it is, there's always help and hope.
Yes. Do you
And
mind if I plug my Instagram page?
yeah,
Because I
go on.
don't think I've
Yeah.
so
Mm,
you talked about the Instagram lives. I have a page
mm,
called the Black Dyspraxic on
mm.
Instagram, and that's where I kind of put my content. And what I'm really just trying to focus on is that intersection of black and dyspraxia. But I talk about other neurodiversities and other issues surrounding issues regarding race and neurodiversity as well.
Excellent. So, of course, when we finish the show, we will share all that as well, and do
Mm,
link up with Tumi. Anybody watching, I just want to say thank you so much to me for coming on the show today. It's been such
thank
an
you.
eye opener. Honestly, it's been a real eye opener for me. I've learned a lot. I hope our viewers have enjoyed the show as well. We'll be back same place, same time next week. We have the lovely Antoine Allen, who is we'll be talking about his dyslexia journey. So we hope you
Awesome.
can join us at the same time next Monday. Have a fantastic week. And to me, is there anything you want to say to anyone before we go?
What I will just say is this is great. I feel like for any neurodiverse people out there, neurodivergent, don't let anything limit you. The sky is the limit. The future can only get better from here. And this platforms like this are fantastic. Elizabeth is paving the way, and more people like her are paving the way. Just keep the hope alive, keep connecting, keep the conversations going, and together we can make a massive difference to our world and the world of other people that think like us. So let's keep on going.
Thank you to me. I think we better come offline before I get the teardrop in because I can see it coming.
Okay.
So thank you so much for joining us this evening, everybody. Enjoy your week. See you next week,
Okay.
same time, same place. Bye for
Okay.
now.
Bye.
Bye.